Hey, how are you? Happy October. It's October 1st, 2025, and we are already in the Halloween season. Isn't that awesome? I don't have a lot to display today. Some of them you might have seen. You might have seen David from the Lost Boys. I think I had him featured in my very first video. He was kind of in the back, and we have the Necca Dracula, and this is an old lunchbox from the 70s of the Universal Monsters in Seymour. Um, I just wanted to say, is everybody gearing up for the Halloween season? I hope so. Halloween is a great time. I know it's a lot different than it used to be. We used to have so much fun. I remember uh, when we used to live in Thousand Oaks. Sometimes we drive down to Van Nuys, and they had the Van Nuys drive-in, and we would go there and see movies on Halloween night. A bunch of us would get together, and we'd have little Halloween parties at the drive-in. It was so much fun, and and when we were living in New Orleans, there were times that we went to the Halloween there, trick or treating, went to the French Quarter. In City Park was the perfect place for Halloween. They used to have like this haunted house there. And at one time, the sheriff's office used to have the inmates dressed up as the monsters, and they were chained to the floor. It was so weird, but it was so much fun. They had all kind of games and you know music, bands, everything. And over the lake, over the Pontchartrain, there was a place. Actually, there were two places. One was Jellystone, Yogi Bear Park, and then they have Land of Pines, which were campgrounds that used to go all out for Halloween. They would have bands, they would have different games, they would have bingo. You would dress up your camper, or you would, if you were in a tent, you'd dress that up and you'd win a prize, and everyone that was at the campground would go trick or treating, and everyone was in costume. They would have dances. It was so much fun, and just being in that kind of environment for Halloween is so spooky because with the old cypress trees on some of the grounds. Now at Jellystone, they uh, they used to have a trail that you can go on, and we used to spook everyone. We would hide, in the woods or along the trail in the bushes, and scare people and stuff. We used to have some great costumes. When I went to the art institute, I used to make a lot of latex masks and things like that, and we would bring a lot of stuff with us, props and things. It was just so much fun. Now at Land of Pines, there was a river, and everyone used to go out on the river. It was a sandy bank river, probably about 3 feet. It wasn't deep, and we would have bonfires and just gosh, it was so much fun. I remember one time we came down to New Orleans when I was a kid, and we used to go where we were living was an area called Lakeview, and we used to go trick or treating in that neighborhood, and we would go to Al Hurt's house, and he would always give us a bunch of candy. Al Hurt was the famous trumpet player, uh, um, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I believe even the early 80s, he was still doing stuff. He was famous for oh, it wasn't, I can't remember if he had anything to do with Goldfinger, the music, if he played the trumpet in Goldfinger. But I know he did trumpet for, different soundtracks and his own stuff. He was famous for When the Saints Go Marching In. At the time, it was before the Superdome was built. The Saints used to play at Tulane Stadium, and while my dad was doing work here, I had gotten a little job at Tulane Stadium selling soft drinks in the stands. Now I was 9 years old, and not only did they have me selling cokes in the stand, I remember it because of cellophane over the cups and the foam coming over. But they had me selling beer in the stands at 9 years old. So crazy, but it was a lot of fun. It was really nice when I was selling sodas in the stands and watching the games in the open air stadium. It wasn't a really big stadium. I had been there for concerts when we moved back, I think like the second or third time. ZZ Top was there, but they used to have a bunch of big concerts for, at Tulane Stadium, and it was great. I remember one time the Saints were playing my home team, the LA Rams, and I got to meet Roman Gabriel. And then later on, I can't remember who the quarterback was the other time. I can't remember, but I know I remember I met Rosie Greer. I met uh, uh, Jim Youngblood, Jack Youngblood, uh, Merlin Olsen, all them, famous Rams players. Oh God, Jim McCutcheon, I think was his name. And but yeah, it was fun. Halloween is such a great time. Uh, I had moved back and forth to New Orleans a number of times, and spent a lot of time in New Orleans working in film. Uh, you know, Going there for different concert tours. We would play in New Orleans, different shows, many shows actually. Um, and there was a wax museum called Musicanti, and they decided that they were going to do a like a haunted house inside the wax museum because they had wax figures of uh, famous Louisiana figures and um, like you know different dioramas of the Battle of New Orleans and the Red Light District. They had one of Napoleon and the Colbert Sullivan fight that they had in New Orleans, and just quite a few different famous uh, New Orleans and Louisiana history, dioramas. They had Caruso as Pagliacci. He was at the New Orleans Opera House, I believe, when he played. They had uh, the they were called the Casket Girls. They I forget, it might have been something to do with the yellow fever at the time. I can't remember. They had just a number of different famous Marie Laveau, the Witch Queen of New Orleans. They had just so many different. They had one also that was a diorama of the mafia in New Orleans. There was several movies made about that particular incident where they went and lynched a bunch of Italians because there was a police captain that was killed, and they thought that some of the Italians did it, and some of the ones that were in the mafia had something to do with it, which they did not. And they ended up lynching a few of the Italians in Jackson Square. It was the largest lynching in American history. There's a movie called Vendetta. It's with Christopher Walken, and I believe that has something to do with it. I haven't seen the film, but I believe that's about that particular time period. And then in another area of the Wax Museum, they had the Haunted Dungeon. That was cool. They had all the different monster figures and, the big wax figures of everyone: Dracula, Frankenstein, Creature, Phantom, the Grave Diggers. They had, and the dioramas were nice, the way they had everything set up. Uh, they had Barnabas Collins and the werewolf Quentin Collins. They had Angelique, a bunch of them. So these people decided to do a haunted house in the Wax Museum, the haunted dungeon part. And man, it's a shame because people went in there and started trashing it. They started taking uh, some of the outfits that the wax figures were wearing, and so they only did it like once or twice, and they shut it down, which I don't blame them. But that was fun. I worked that, and it was a lot of fun. I used to get a lot of gigs like during Halloween with a lot of my costumes and stuff. And yeah, just fun. Halloween is such a great time, man. Great time. And in LA, if you're familiar with that area of Pacific Coast Highway and some of the drive-ins that they used to have, and not just drive-in movies, but you know uh, they call them drive-ins, like Mel's Drive-In from American Graffiti, or Tubby's from Hollywood Nights, those kind of places. Those things really happened. I mean, I remember that. I remember the cruising, and it was so much fun. I remember when the Hells Angels would fly their colors on the weekend, and they would, ride down Pacific Coast Highway, and man, that was so cool. I mean, for so far long, you would see nothing but bikes. It was fun, man. I loved LA. I had such a great time every time I lived there, and when we would move away because of my father's work, I was so homesick to get back. It's a totally different world in LA now, especially Venice Beach, man. I can't believe Venice Beach looks like now. My goodness. I would have never thought that LA is what it is now. I mean, yeah, there's, many parts of it that is great, but I mean, by the Grauman's Chinese Theater and, all that area, you have a lot of vagrancy, and you have a lot of crime now. It's like that was unheard of when I lived there. They had only one area, if you want to call it Skid Row, but it was limited to one area of downtown at the time when I was living there. Totally different world. Kansas City too. We used to go trick or treating when we lived in Kansas City, and that was fun. Kansas City is a great town, beautiful town. And last time I was there, started having its issues too. And uh, living in uh, Denver, outside of Denver, because also it lived in part of Colorado. It's in the mountains. It's south of Colorado Springs, and it's nice. But when we were in Denver, um, we used to. I remember the first time we moved up there. My family were already there, and the first time I moved up there, rather, went trick or treating, and it was snowing. It was crazy, trick or treating in the snow. That was pretty bizarre. But Halloween is just not what it used to be. Everyone used to decorate. I hardly see anyone decorating anymore. I know last year there weren't many people decorating. Um, there is one area that we go to, and it's really nice. They go all out. There was a place in Chalmette, uh, down in Louisiana. There was a place. It's the Battle of New Orleans took place there. In the Chalmette area, and there was a place called oh gosh, what was it called? Um, it was an area off of a street called Judge Perez, Lexington Place. And when I tell you they went all out for Halloween, I mean, for blocks and blocks and blocks, they would close the streets off, and while you're driving to the area, you could see like the big spotlights in the sky. Like they have a grand opening and they have those spotlights, you know, and it was that. And what it was, they were coming from this one house, and this house, I don't know if the guy worked for NASA or whether he was just, you know, that talented. He was very talented. They had this one house that in the front yard there was this huge UFO, and they had the little aliens coming down. I mean, the guy did a great job on the UFO. I have pictures of it somewhere. And another house they did, made it look like Bates Motel, the house itself, and you could see the girl in the shower up above, and it was fun. They gave out so much stuff. Now, one of the houses, instead of giving candy out, what they would do, they had a big hot dog cart, and you could make your own hot dog, and they would give you a hot dog, and they would give you something to drink. They had popcorn, and ah, man, I mean, they went way out for Halloween. And then, of course, Katrina came, and uh, that ended that. I don't even know if they even do it anymore. But Katrina really hit Chalmette very hard. Um, I know a lot of people, when they think of Katrina, they think in the Ninth Ward. And as I had mentioned in other videos, uh, there were other areas of New Orleans that were totally devastated. Lakeview, um, Chalmette, excuse me, parts of Metairie was pretty devastated. Um, the Uptown area, the Garden District, the Central Business District was pretty messed up everywhere. It wasn't just the Ninth Ward. It's kind of annoying because, you know, that's all they focused on. And I'm going to tell you something, those houses before Katrina were destroyed anyway. No one took care of those houses there. Brad Pitt built houses for a lot of people in the Ninth Ward. He built these houses and gave them to people. They destroyed the houses, okay? The people that were living there destroyed the houses, and then they ended up trying to sue Brad Pitt. I don't know whatever became of that, but that was pretty, crazy that, they would hear a man, you know, gave these people houses after Katrina, they mess them up, and then they want to sue him. And I've worked with Brad Pitt before. He's a fabulous guy. You know, whatever your politics are, believe me, and I know he gets political, but I'm gonna tell you, he's super fantastic guy. I had so much fun working with him. Worked on Interview with the Vampire with him, and man, he couldn't have been nicer. Tom Cruise too. I know a lot of people have their issues with Tom Cruise. They were both gentlemen. I mean, they were great. I had some I had some times that I can't talk about on film with those two guys during breaks, but it was fun. Nothing bad, but they just it was fun being around them. It really was. It was, you know, and it's a shame that they wanted to sue the guy for, and giving them houses, but that what can you do? Some people just aren't grateful. I guess, but I just wanted to come on for a minute and say hey and show off David and Dracula and Seymour and wish everyone a, a happy October. I'm sure I'll be doing some more uh, around Halloween, if not before. And I have still a lot of toys that I want to present. What I'd like to do, I want to gather up a lot of my old GI Joe vehicles, the GI Joe vehicles from the '60s and '70s, like the 12-inch GI Joes. And I have, the vehicle from the Mummy's Tomb. I have the command center. I have a big, huge army tank, the jeeps, the helicopter from Search for the Stolen Idol. I have a bunch, and I have some uh, German military vehicles too. Uh, World War II German vehicles, and some of the German figures. I have the you know the the believe it's the I don't know if it was the 1945 Harley Davidson Courier, the military courier. I have that one, and then I believe that one comes with a sidecar, and then I have another one from the German army that comes with a sidecar that's really cool, and I might break out some of those figures, some of the German figures too. I was a little hesitant to pull out some of those. I know they're kind of controversial with that whole thing back in World War II, and you know Mr. Mustache Man or whatever. But you know, it was a horrible time in world history with all that, and I might get uh, a lot of feedback on this, but maybe not the best feedback. But you got to admit, those German World War II uniforms, man, we had beautiful uniforms too, but man, you got to admit, those some of those German uniforms were freaking fine looking, man. I know, but some of them were great. Some of those leather overcoats were just nice. I mean, you got to give them that, with their, I mean, look at their engineering with cars and fashion. They were known for fashion too, other than France and Italy, and of course, other places. But um, they had man, some of those outfits were really nice looking, but nothing's gonna beat the Marine Blues. Nothing, nothing can come close to the Marine Blues. I mean, that is a uniform. That's beautiful, beautiful. But anyway, so I want to say goodnight, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead and a wonderful weekend.